New U.S. strikes against Iran this Wednesday night.
I'll give them a little warning. We're going to hit them hard tonight.
Why President Trump says Iran broke their truce, where this is headed, and what it could mean for gas prices. Slamming NATO, why Trump is complaining about the alliance again, as Canada's Prime Minister tells allies Canada is serious about defense. Extreme makeover, Manhattan Mayhem edition.
Concrete was falling from the roof below. The I-beams are bending like cigarettes.
The dangerous skyscraper renovation that's triggered evacuations. Plus, the Canadian mission to see the Quest shipwreck.
There's still the wood planking.
The first images of explorer Ernest Shackleton's final ship.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The U.S. military is attacking Iran for a second night, making good on a threat from President Donald Trump, who today called the leadership in Iran scum and said the truce between Iran and the U.S. is over. The U.S. accuses Iran of violating the agreement by attacking 3 oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, plus U.S. military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait. It is hard to know where this is headed. Trump said today the U.S. military might just finish the job, but also said he doesn't think the war will start again. What is clear is that the conflict continues to choke shipments of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, and that destabilizes the world economy. Jackson Proskow has our top story tonight.
This was the exchange of fire overnight as the U.S. struck more than 80 targets in Iran. Iran fired back at American bases in the region, leaving the fate of the fragile truce in doubt.
To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them and with their scum.
Despite Iran's vow to strike back even harder if attacked again, the American president promised there would be new strikes, and soon after followed through on his threat.
I'll give them a little warning. We're going to hit them hard tonight.
The military option has already proven itself to be pretty ineffective. And if they go back to all-out hostilities, they would not end up in a fundamentally different position than where they are right now.
Just 3 weeks ago, Donald Trump suggested the 12-point Memorandum of Understanding was tantamount to Iran's unconditional surrender. Yet it didn't stop Iran from striking ships in the Strait of Hormuz, as they did again Tuesday. At the NATO summit, there was support for the American response.
There has been a response as appropriate. We look to de-escalation of the hostilities.
Iran is basically violating the ceasefire.
If the ceasefire is truly over, it could mean a return to global disruption. Trump is already suggesting he's ready to attack Iran's most prized territory, its oil export hub.
Maybe we'll take over Cargill. We may take over Cargill. There's not a thing they can do about it.
Iran could reclose the Strait of Hormuz. The American naval blockade could return as well, unless the two sides find a way back from the brink once again.
I do believe that after some cycles of tit for tat, they are likely to return to the negotiating table.
The U.S. says it's now reimposing sanctions on Iranian oil exports, which had been lifted as part of the deal. That cuts off Iran's biggest source of income and will raise skepticism in Tehran that the U.S. can be trusted to keep its word about sanctions relief in the future. Donna?
Jackson in Washington, thank you. Whether this flares into something bigger or is just a blip in negotiations, the impact on global oil prices was immediate. The price of a barrel of Brent crude jumped 8% to more than $80 U.S. today. That is well below its peak earlier in this conflict, but as Jacqueline Hansen reports, the uncertainty has the power to again drive up gas prices and inflation.
We may put down the blockade. We may put it back.
As President Donald Trump toyed with another U.S. blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, oil tankers headed for the exits.
This might be their last chance for the next little while to escape, and they're very much using this opportunity to do so.
The precarious peace deal between the U.S. and Iran cleared the way for a surge of ships through the strait and a drop in oil prices. But between Trump casting doubt on the ceasefire and violence in the strait, that opening may quickly close.
We're now looking at the potential for a dead stop.
After a month of oil prices falling, the possibility that flow of oil could dry up is sending them higher.
We can see oil prices come back as quickly as they retreated.
And Canadians still waiting for relief at the gas pump may not see it. Gasoline prices have already been slow to fall. A big reason for that is refineries can't keep up with all the crude oil coming back onto the market. So the supply of gasoline is still limited, and a return to normal may not happen anytime soon if oil shipments get disrupted again.
We're just going to keep drawing those inventories lower, and prices are going to continue to rise until eventually, in the worst case scenario, they rise to levels at the pump that force you and I to reconsider how much we're going to fill the family vehicle that day.
More financial stress that could hurt Canadians and an already fragile economy.
Should I book that vacation or should I make that purchase? I'm not really sure because, again, I can't know or trust if this conflict is over. So the uncertainty, for sure, from a psychological perspective, probably holds back some spending and investment.
Uncertainty that many thought was behind us. Jacqueline Hansen, Global News, Toronto.
President Trump certainly dominated the NATO meeting, and other leaders seemed careful not to rile him. Yet Trump still went after Spain, calling it a wasted cause, and he revived his idea of taking over Greenland. The NATO meeting has now wrapped. Mackenzie Gray reports on how Canada's Prime Minister navigated the summit.
The mission was clear: try and keep Donald Trump happy.
The president's here. He's in a good mood.
A mood Mark Carney seemed to have misjudged.
I don't want anything to do with Spain. Cut off all trade with Spain, please. I'm going to relate my problems. Greenland is a big problem for us. But I just, it's interesting. I'm very unhappy with NATO.
A greatest hits of complaints from the president, mad that NATO didn't join the war in Iran and that they don't spend enough on defense. But insults and threats towards allies didn't stop the praise from rolling in.
And I think this is a big win for the American president.
The Prime Minister backing up Trump's belief that NATO has freeloaded off the U.S.
There's a process of shifting burdens. The United States still in the alliance without question, but shifting towards Europe and Canada.
A burden that comes with a major cost. For the first time, the Liberals are revealing Canada's estimated to spend $71.5 billion on defense in 2026. That's 2.13% of Canadian GDP, a $5.9 billion increase from last year. Money that could be used in Canada's biggest mission.
Great to see you again. Great to see you again.
Operation Reassurance in Latvia has been extended until 2031 in a bid to help deter Russian aggression in the Baltics.
I just wanted to thank you and Canada and the people of Canada for great partnership, your contribution.
Those troops could soon have new equipment, with Canada signing an $800 million long-range missile deal with a Norwegian firm, the latest in a number of agreements that Mark Carney used in a call with Trump to prove Canada is serious about defense.
As part of the point I made to President Trump when we spoke a few days ago, is that it's not just he's winning the argument, he's won the argument.
Mark Carney's now traveled here to Saudi Arabia, Donna, a country that he says he wants deeper defense ties with, despite the fact that the kingdom has one of the world's worst human rights records and have been credibly accused of using military equipment to quell protests.
Mackenzie Gray in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, thanks. President Trump has insulted and berated Ukraine's president in the past, but today he offered a bit of hope. Ukraine, he says, may be allowed to manufacture much-needed American Patriot interceptor missiles.
We're going to give a license to you to make Patriots. That's pretty cool, right? Larry? This way you can't complain that we're not giving them enough. I'd say make them yourself.
Ukraine has been running short of Patriot missiles. Volodymyr Zelensky had repeatedly asked for more, but the U.S. has been burning through its stockpile, intercepting Iranian missiles in the Middle East. Ukraine was unable to shoot down nearly 30 Russian ballistic missiles fired this week. They killed at least 50 people. It's unclear how long it will take to ramp up production in Ukraine of the expensive and complex Patriot missiles. Well, news of that major bust of transnational gangs based in India is getting a lot of attention, especially in BC. One of the accused is charged with ordering the murder of a prominent Sikh activist in BC 3 years ago. There are also multiple charges of extortion, racketeering, and drug trafficking across the Canada-U.S. border. Sarah McDonald has the reaction.
Targeted killings, drug trafficking, racketeering, and extortion. Criminal activity that for years has terrorized members of the country's South Asian community. And the impetus now for a sweeping operation targeting transnational organized crime groups with ties to India and state-sponsored criminality.
These groups operate transnationally and so must law enforcement.
Law enforcement coordinating on 3 continents, taking 13 into custody in the United States, 1 in Europe, and charging 7 people already incarcerated. At least 10 others charged, but still at large. Of the 24 arrested internationally, 3 were in Canada. All of them in BC.
There's a lot of work that goes into arresting people throughout the world all at the same time.
Among 3 indictments unsealed in California, charges against Indian gang leader Lawrence Bishnoi and Ontario-based cohort Sadinderjeet Goli Brar, who's still at large, for coordinating the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Surrey, BC in 2023.
I think the message to the rest of Sikh activists across Canada especially was that this could be your end.
Moninder Singh, another high-profile member of the province's Sikh community who's had threats on his own life, says the charges come as vindication and as a dose of cold comfort, implicating individuals and not who he feels is ultimately responsible, the Indian government.
We do not believe that they're the ones that gave the orders and carried this entire operation out on their own.
The men arrested in BC alleged to be the co-conspirators behind a cross-border drug smuggling operation, accused of transporting hundreds of kilograms of cocaine and methamphetamine between the United States and Canada on a weekly basis. One defendant accused of intending to start a new cartel.
Like, it's expected that these people are involved and they're playing some type of role. Unfortunately, it just took a really long time to get to them.
All 3 men in Canadian custody back in court on Thursday for a bail hearing. Sarah McDonald, Global News, Surrey, BC.
Air Canada has named a new CEO. Anko van der Werf is replacing Michael Rousseau, who is widely criticized for his decision to deliver an English-only speech in the wake of a plane crash that killed 2 Air Canada pilots, one of them from Quebec. Van der Werf is head of Scandinavian Airlines and says he speaks 6 languages, including French.
I'm also mindful of the importance of serving Canadians in both official languages. And that is a fundamental responsibility for Air Canada, and I'm fully committed to upholding it in the course of my duties.
Van der Werf will move to Air Canada by the end of January 2027. Tech giant Meta says it intends to build its first Canadian artificial intelligence data center in Alberta. The massive 1 gigawatt facility will be built in Sturgeon County, north of Edmonton, and will cost an estimated $13 billion. The province says it will be powered by natural gas and will not draw water from the surrounding area.
They obviously responded to the concerns about water use because they're using the closed loop system and air cooling. And they also worked with us to make sure that there wasn't going to be a peak in power prices by building their own power.
Meta promises to spend $60 billion to improve local infrastructure. The company is ramping up its computing capacity as it competes in the crowded field of artificial intelligence. Money talks coming up, how hundreds of thousands of dollars is being spent ahead of Alberta's separation referendum. With just 3 months until Alberta's referendum on whether to have a referendum on separation, campaigns for both sides are well underway. Separatist groups have been buying up billboards and distributing signs. New disclosures from Elections Alberta show those groups are outraising Federalist organizations by far. Heather Urix-West looks at what that could mean for this fall's vote.
In front of his Diamond Valley, Alberta home south of Calgary, Ray Welsh is making his position known.
I want to be a free Albertan because I'm tired of sending all the money down east.
The Choose Alberta lawn and highway signs have been appearing all over rural Alberta as third-party advertiser Corey Morgan spends the tens of thousands of dollars his group has raised.
We started just at the end of May, right at the beginning of June. Honestly, I really only expected to raise a few $1,000s and make a few hundred signs. Since then, we're over $100,000 and have put out, we got 12,000 signs have been made.
According to numbers posted by Elections Alberta, most of the over $400,000 raised so far by third-party advertisers is for groups supporting separation. As of July 2nd, Let Alberta Decide has raised over $200,000. Pathway to Independence over $82,000. That's compared to the leading Federalist group, Alberta's Voice, with just $26,000 raised so far.
We're up against that. We're up against the 2 highest fundraising organizations are both separatists, and they're outraising my organization more than 10 to 1.
Elections Alberta requires all third-party advertisers submit contribution reports weekly, and only Alberta residents are allowed to donate up to a maximum of $5,000 each.
These are not large donations. These are smaller donations from over 1,000 Albertans. And it says to me that the level of discontent with Alberta's treatment within Confederation is strong.
But the province's most visible Federalist campaign, the ones behind these Forever Canadian signs, has not yet disclosed how much money they've raised.
Elections Alberta doesn't require a Forever Canadian to declare our fundraising because we're not campaigning on the referendum question.
Thomas Lukaszyk's group says it will make its financials public as a non-profit at a later date and will not accept funds from those outside the province. Polling shows support for separatism in Alberta at or below 25%, with more than 3 months to go. Heather Yurex, West Global News, Calgary.
Danger from above ahead, how experts are trying to stabilize a buckling high-rise in New York City. A U.S. judge has ordered that writer E. Jean Carroll should promptly receive a $5.8 million payment President Trump owes her. In 2023, a jury found Trump sexually abused Carroll in 1996 and later defamed her when he denied the allegations. The federal court judge directed the release of the money from an escrow account, along with the interest that has accrued since the verdict. The Supreme Court rejected an appeal by Trump last week. There's a delicate operation underway in New York City. Construction crews are working to try to stabilize a high-rise in Midtown Manhattan after a pair of support columns buckled during a major renovation project. There were fears the building would collapse. Officials are now trying to reassure the public that it is stable. Mike Armstrong explains.
It's not a job for the faint of heart. Crews worked through the night and all day to stabilize a building that had been moving.
I want to confirm for all New Yorkers that there has been no additional movement of the structure since yesterday morning.
The first signs something was wrong was from street level, falling bricks, but they were symptoms of the actual problem on the 21st floor. 2 load-bearing steel columns buckled, and those failures caused the floors above to sag.
The concrete was coming down, the beams started bending, the windows started busting, and that's not something you see.
Now, the building was once the world headquarters of pharmaceutical giant Pfizer. It's undergoing a major transformation. The new owners are turning it into a massive 1,600-unit apartment building. They're adding 11 floors to a part of the structure that once had only 22. For some reason, the new weight appears to have been a problem.
It's crazy. It's serious, right? I mean, we've seen what you can see, the compromised beams, but what can't you see? You know, that's the thing. I mean, what's behind the walls?
New York's Department of Buildings set up monitoring points in and around the structure. Officials say it's been stabilized enough to reopen some neighboring buildings. Only 4 are still under a full evacuation order.
Obviously something went wrong here, which caused the floors to collapse, and thank God it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Focus for now is on shoring up the structure. Crews are adding temporary beams to every floor from the 9th to the roof. New York's mayor says once that's done, before any work continues, there will be a full investigation because somewhere a mistake was made. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
SeaQuest next, the Canadian-led expedition showing the first underwater images of explorer Ernest Shackleton's last ship. Toronto Tempo guard Marina Mabry has been named a WNBA All-Star, the first in the team's history. Mabry made headlines last month after tying the league's single-game scoring record with 53 points. She is set to play in the league's All-Star game in Chicago on July 25th, which will also be a celebration of the WNBA's 30th anniversary. The first images of a relic from the early days of adventurers exploring Antarctica have been captured thanks to modern technology. The ghostly underwater video of Sir Ernest Shackleton's last ship is being shared with the world by the international team that first located it decades after it sank. Heidi Petracek explains what the images reveal and what's next.
This is Alvin, the submersible that took expedition members 390 meters deep in the Labrador Sea to see Sir Ernest Shackleton's last ship, Quest, in its final resting place.
I found it tremendously moving, as we crept through the abyss through this murky water. Suddenly, you could see the bow of a ship emerge.
The schooner-rigged steamship is surrounded by sea life, laying undisturbed since it sank in 1962.
There's still the wood planking that's on the sides of the ship. But a lot of the deck planking is now gone, and then the aft section of the wreck itself is draped by this fishing gear.
In the early 20th century, Shackleton was among intrepid explorers racing to reach the South Pole. He reached Antarctica several times, but never made it to his goal. And while taking Quest on his last voyage in 1922, he died on board of a heart attack at 47. The vessel ended up in the hands of Norwegian seal hunters decades later, then struck ice and went down.
To think that Shackleton was on that ship, he died on that ship. It's very, very moving.
The tools on this expedition are something Shackleton could have only dreamed of. The images of Quest, taken by high-definition video cameras utilizing specialized Canadian technology, will be used to create a detailed 3D model.
I'm very excited because that'll be a permanent record of Quest today, and people be able to get a real sense of the ship virtually.
The team's next stop, the wreck of the Terra Nova, a ship once helmed by Shackleton rival Captain Robert Falcon Scott. Another artifact of the past, waiting in the depths to be brought to light. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is the Sturgeon River in St. Albert, Alberta. We would love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.